adjourned special board meeting for Tuesday, May the 21st. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning. Let's just take roll call so we're official.
Yep. Robert DePalma.
I'm here.
Janelle Keller.
Here.
Teresa Bells.
Here.
Gina Mazzarelli.
Here.
Jim Christopher is excused.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, has everybody got a copy of the agenda? It's pretty short today because the two subsequent editions will have to postpone until we have a full board meeting. But other than that, the rest of the agenda is really to have the presentation from Tom, Z Promotions, as to what we had talked about when we were looking at the park and getting ready to decide if we wanted to use it. So Tom is the one that I think we should be going with, and so I wanted the whole board to be able to see the presentation if you have any questions. So is there a motion to approve the agenda as submitted without the new business? Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments from the board?
No.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we're rocking and rolling. Tom? Sure.
Thank you.
Usually we have more shiny photos and cool stuff, but this is like really business, so we'll not event business. First, I'd like, and is it all right if I just sit?
You can do
Do it
it.
however you're
This is
comfortable with.
pretty cool.
You're all right back there, right in
So
the huge audience we have
Okay,
tonight.
thank you. First, I want to introduce the smartest people that I work with, Gian Cadiz, Heather Williams. Sometimes I'm the face of a lot of things, and there's a lot of people in the background that make me look way smarter than I am.
We understand that.
That's these guys. And so with that said, when Bob brought this program to our attention, now what seems like a long time ago. Well, that's how everything works, but it fits really well into what we already do. You guys probably know that I have been the one that has used the park for more events than everybody else. Between us collectively, should I admit how many years? Between us collectively, there's about 70 years of automotive experience. I'm the oldest one in here, so I claim some larger share of that. But between us, a huge amount of marketing in the automotive space, a huge amount of, you guys even know these? A huge amount of automotive marketing experience, communications experience. I'll let Gian and Heather both tell you a little bit about their background. You guys kind of know an awful lot about my background because I've sat here on many occasions and talked about events and off-roading and all of that stuff. But I think in the collective, there's a depth of experience, but equally important to the experience is the context. And you can have all the experience you want, and in the absence of context to get to C-suite level decision makers, you're not going to be able to make a project like this succeed. It's the decision makers. Bob and I were both at the Oakland County event last week.
By the way, I meant to call you back when you texted me and said, I talked to both the Polaris guy and the Magnet guy
Yep.
quite a bit of length over the table later.
Kevin's a super nice guy. One of the gentlemen from Polaris was there, and he knew me and had been to our events and all kinds of stuff. He's nowhere near a decision-making level. He's a guy that wants to bring a project there. He's like, oh, we need that for sure. Well, there's 4 different levels that I have to go through. We have contact with the person that makes that decision. And as much as we want to have all those people on our side, for obvious reasons, the important part is that this group can bring together the decision makers. Gian, Heather, can you give a little bit of a rundown of your backgrounds in the automotive space?
Well, thanks for having us today. So my background started at Daimler Chrysler back in 2016 and was there for about 10 years. I launched everything from the 4-door Wrangler to helping bring back Italian cars to the U.S.
2006.
Starts
You're trying to-
2006. My God, I wish. I wish.
I'm better at it.
Time is flying. I am old.
I was still counting.
But, yep.
Wondering, should I go?
So I've been in off-road events my whole career, doing things from, you know, off-roading in Africa to you name it. I went over to lead Ford trucks on the communication side. That was in 2016.
Yes.
And was more recently with Ford up to launching Bronco, and you may have seen all the activities that we did in the park with the big Bronco signage facing I-75. And long story short, I met Tom in 2017, about a year in the job. He asked me, we had a mutual friend, to come out to the park. I brought all my Ford colleagues with us. We saw, you know, the mines at a very early state and what the vision and opportunities it could be. And as an off-road enthusiast and knowing the proximity, I grew up in Rochester Hills, like to have something like this in the backyard is phenomenal. And I knew that my colleagues at the time would appreciate that. We knew that from an event standpoint, a photography standpoint, all the assets and things that we could do with that kind of space locally that we couldn't do at our own proving grounds was an absolute gift. What we come to learn during COVID, but even without COVID, is that there's a lot of hurdles and gateways to just showing up if you're Ford, for example. You can't just, the bureaucracy wouldn't just let you go to the park and like, hey, we want to use it for photography. Tom will tell you that over the time we had to have our global proving grounds folks come in and evaluate it from a safety perspective. What are the protocols to, you know, in the event of an emergency, how are we taking care of the staff? What level tiered driving capabilities would we have out there for Ford staff to be able to drive or not drive? So there's all sorts of different things and nuances that we all learn. And I mean, you know, having been on that side, I get it. At the same time, we know those people that are gonna use the park are the ones that often don't get to make the decision, right? So we're going after the procurement people, the finance people, everyone else, but the end user is very different than the person that's probably gonna make the decision. So long story short, happy to be here. I've got a lot of OEM experience, and I love this guy, and Heather's been great, and I know we'll do great things for you.
And so my background, though, I'm not, I don't have an off-roading background. I've spent 25 years working in sales. I'm from the agency side, so really helping, you know, helping manufacturers, working in automotive the whole time. I lived in Southern California for about 15 years, so working with across all brands, really helping them with media plans, with event planning, and the execution of those things. So marshaling all the resources that need to get done when a Ford, when Gian was a client of mine, comes to us and says, we want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. This was whether it was an event or media, multimedia content production, things along those lines, making sure that the message was right to the right audience and that we were telling it at the right time. So my background comes in that sales, sponsorships, and partnerships background. Again, Gian was a client of mine where we were able to use resources for my former company for him. And now I work in sales and partnerships at a you know, doing other sales for other folks at an agency on the OEM side. So lots of background there, have really come to love the park and really understand how this is going to be really positive for the future, right? What this is going to mean for an ongoing basis to have to make that bridge from the manufacturers, from the enthusiasts, and the land that's available. So looking forward to hearing what you all have to say and any questions that you have.
If I can, I'll just add that, I probably said this to somebody over coffee or something, but I've actually known Tom for 20 or 25 years. So, it's been a long time between, but I mean, when I first met him when we were doing stuff at the park, I realized it was the same guy I've been dealing with a long time ago. And so, generally speaking, just like with Barry, it's nice if we work with somebody you have a record with of some positive interaction for it, and it has been with Tom. What really brought it to light was after he came here and he started coming into the board to Billy Danielle to get his permits for the Ford Fest that he puts on, you know. And it's nice to say we've had those without a single glitch or complaint from anybody. It's because he takes the time. He takes the time to come in and try and do it the right way. And then what I quickly realized recently was that he actually is. I had asked folks at the county for a list of everybody that used the park, and his is the name that shows up all the time because most of those events that are done at the park are really orchestrated through his events. So, when it became apparent that he had the contacts of virtually everybody that's in the auto, off-road manufacturing or component part of it, he just seemed like the perfect source for us to try and get that phase one development that we talked about, where we can try and do that without a gigawatt of electricity in it right now.
Can I ask a question? Back in January, you sent Bob some video clips. What do you like, you know, that kind of thing. Bob, what was the consensus on those?
Well,
Did we generally like the
We-
same
we-
one?
Well, actually, all I was looking for is, I told Tom the same thing I told the other bidders. And if you recall, one of the bidders, after kind of jerking us around for about 2.5 months, said, you probably should pick somebody else, because I just can't get to it right now. One of them gave me a good price, but it was just on the video. Tom's approach is a little more holistic. He's not just trying to prepare the video graphic, that part of the package for the marketing, but he's also got a lot of insight on how we can tweak the flyers and stuff to get that part of the marketplace better. And he's got the contacts to get what we develop to the right person that makes the decision. So I wasn't really that worried on what we want in the graphics representation. There were at least 3 people that I did have bids from. And Tom's bid for the whole package was more, but he's doing a lot more for it. He's very much connected in with the events at SEMA and some of the other places, which is kind of the go-to show for everybody that's in any kind of auto or off-road manufacturing. And so that's the reason I came in on him. And I'm confident that in the discussions I've had with him, if we go forward today with this, we will sit down and make sure that as we're developing that graphics package for the video that eventually will be on the website and the memories, that we will be in sync with what we need to do for that.
Is it fair to say that you've got an idea of who really is interested?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Down to
Okay.
names, phone numbers, and email addresses.
Okay. Okay.
I spend a lot of time, as we all do, associated with SEMA. That is where a lot of the contacts will be made, but all of us are at multiple trade shows and know how to navigate the trade shows in an effective way to get the appointments. And you can be at a trade show and there's 100,000 people at the trade show and you're like, oh my goodness, now what? It's having the plan to meet with the decision makers, having access to the decision makers, having the name of the decision maker that's on site, and getting the appointment. That's kind of one of the keys, but, and Bob has already said so much, I feel bad because I got all kinds of details and Bob's covered a lot of it.
No, go ahead. Please, yeah, we wanna hear the details, because I'm looking at you and going, I think you need a broker or real estate license and make it a whole package. Sorry, but yeah, cause some of these, yeah, I wanna
Well,
see
in
fluidity.
fairness, when I talked to the 2 brokers that we were narrowing
Right.
down to, I told both of them, this guy has the contacts to bring the people in for what we're looking for.
Right,
You have to have some kind of a finder's fee that he gets out of this,
absolutely,
so.
and that's what I'm getting at.
They both know
Absolutely.
that discussion's gotta take place.
Okay.
So I'm gonna approach this a little bit backwards from the way that we actually laid it out, but it's so that we address what you're kind of questioning. My dad told me when I was very young, stay in your lane, son. I'm not sure how he meant that. You guys can probably guess given my racing background, but having a real estate broker involved in that from our side might make sense. Very pointedly, I think that there's a level of transparency that's necessary for the township that we do not handle all of it. And I think that's an important aspect to this. I think it honestly places too much responsibility on us, not that we're unwilling to accept responsibility for a lot of things, but that's the whole thing. And I think that there's something to be said for breaking that up and having a known real estate broker that's you know, that's what he does. If we were to bring him this package, he'd look at it and say, what's a SEMA? So we know where we're headed with this, and I think that there's some basic elements to this that that we kind of want to walk through. And first is the cadence. Jan, can you touch on our cadence for just a minute? And largely that's going to be dictated by you.
Show this maybe, Heather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of these to.
Yeah, sure.
This is an outline really of what we wanted to cover today. Okay. That will be associated with what Gion's got.
So we think in this, what we believe in this first phase of what your investment needs to cover, I broke it down to kind of 4 things. I think it matters that we deliver like a position, what this, you know, what the mines mean, what the opportunity is, as well as where we're unique relative to the marketplace, right? We know that, because I'm tied to a lot of different car culture, garages and things across the country. And what we're proposing here is.
I just came from M1. Literally,
Yeah.
I was at a meeting at M1 a minute ago, if you'll know what
And-
M1 is.
And, you know, what we're getting to work on here is completely different. And the opportunity, given the proximity to Metro Detroit, all the suppliers and OEMs, like, it is a different animal. And, you know, I think that making sure that we position this correctly, you know, for the different stakeholders and audiences is gonna make a difference, right? You know, I don't think it's necessarily one pitch for all. We know SEMA is a different animal versus us going to Ford, or talking to Jeep, or going to AM General because we love our military friends. They're all looking at things and budgets in a different way and need to be spoke to in a different manner. So I think that's the first thing. I think second is a timeline. You should know, you know, once an investment starts with us, what to expect and what that duration looks like, and what those deliverables look like, as well as kind of a grander timeline with respect to, we're here in phase 1. You know, the question on everyone's mind should be, you know, what are the tentpole moments? When are we breaking ground? When will we see our first dollar out of a lease? We should kind of have that to you as to like, hey, look, they're tracking or they're not tracking, right? You gotta hold us accountable one way or the other. We all need to hold the project accountable to make sure we're all moving together correctly. Creative assets, as we spoke about, you know, yes, sky can be the limit. We know what the budget is. You know, we want to keep it captivating. We believe that our best course of efficiency when it comes to rendering and creating flyovers and how to best show this great space along I-75, you know, we'll render the video and we'll work to make sure that, you know, we can edit it and there's enough quality content that we're putting our best foot forward and you agree of what we're doing. And then from there, breaking it down into images and other assets, because we've already paid for the bulk of it, we can break it down and use it for, if it is printed materials, if it is a website later, all the different deliverables, all the different sales materials that are required. And that lends to the last thing, is making sure that we have a preliminary sales package to offer, right? For those early adopters, the people with the SEMAs of the world that we're talking to, here now in detail, this is what we're offering and this is what it's gonna look like in phase 1.
I give you a good example, I think, of the difference, having this perspective on it. That one-page flyer that I made that we used was just to show where the site was, get some of the key points on it, and it was designed to be kind of generic because the site's got potential for a mega site as well, businesses in there. But when Tom looked at it, he said, well, one problem I see with this, Bob, is you're not focusing in on the off-road park part of it, and that's exactly why we need it, because that's what's in phase 1 for us. So, I thought that was kind of crystallizing the actual issue that I thought we had when we started on this.
The other piece that's gonna come to light, I can't tell you exactly when, but it's gonna come to light, and that's when this team gets out and we're at these trade shows. We're going to hear something that causes us to have to tweak the presentation. And that's what we're prepared to do. We're gonna hear something, or we're gonna get an appointment with a client that says, you know, that's all good, but we need X, X, and X. Well, it's identifying X, X, and X that's gonna cause the difference between winning and just, yeah, what was their name again? They gave us a presentation. They got some property or something, I don't remember. It's being involved enough in the industry to be able to identify those things and hopefully having most of them covered before we ever appear in front of somebody.
It's a little bit different sales cycle. If you were saying we were just trying to get somebody, kind of like some of the M1 people were, It's a guy with a lot of money, he just wants a place to put his exotic car and his hot rod or something and drive around on a track, as to trying to get a corporation to build some sort of a test and tune garage or storage facility or corporate asset that they could use here at the park. The ones that have to go to corporate asset, I think, are a bit more involved in trying to get the sales process through, because they don't make it all at once. And the guy that we frequently start with is not the guy that ultimately signs for the deal at the end, so it's a little bit different sales process. And if you don't have the connections up the ladder on it, you just never see it done with it.
I mean, just imagine, not to interrupt, but just imagine if you're Ford, you've got land all over the place, right? You've got Romeo, you've got Allen Park, there's 83 buildings between Allen Park and Dearborn, and somehow this team would have to go and convince the folks at the Glass House that, hey, you really need another property, and it's a lease, and it makes perfect sense for these reasons. And everyone would probably be like, why? We have acres upon acres everywhere. But again, it's a unique proposition that they don't have. Romeo's flat. And at the same time, the Ford, for example, the company's limited with what they're willing to put on their own property from a development standpoint because of liability. So the company would go to, for instance, Borrego outside of, east out of San Diego and LA, in the middle of nowhere, to do testing that they would not prefer to do on their own property for different liability reasons.
Exactly. And Dave Cole is very happy about that. I think touching on a couple of other critical elements. Once this board says go, we want to create a 90-day timeline to create the assets, all of the visual stuff. We want to take that opportunity. We have a bit of a compressed timeline, so just so that we're clear on some things. These big trade shows are going to start in September. And so, the three of us talk frequently about the fact, like, yeah, it's nearly June, here we go. But create those assets, have those assets ready to go with us into the marketplace, and start to have some very real conversations with these organizations. The big one is, of course, SEMA in November, first week in November. But there's a lot of other places that we can hit on that, including, and in my opinion, ultimately maybe the most important one, is Detroit Ford Fest. Not for my selfish reason, but because we're gonna have everybody from around the industry on site at that exact moment. What an ideal moment to say, Gian, could you take a minute with Joe and Bob and take them over? Here's where this is gonna be. As you can see, there's already a building up. Here's how this is gonna go. That video that we sent you, here's how that's gonna look. And it's a really unique opportunity to have a lot of these folks right here on the ground. This year, I don't know if anybody is in the loop on this, but 4-year pitch. So maybe that doesn't speak well for my sales skills, but 4-year pitch, we finally have the SAE Baja competition in conjunction with Detroit Ford Fest this year. So we'll have 1,500 university students, and right now we've got 86 universities signed up. They all build a small off-road vehicle and then compete. Most of you are thinking, that's gonna be great racing. No, it's not really great racing, because these go 20 to 30 miles per hour max.
Be a moon crawler,
The wheels fall off.
The wheels fall off, stuff happens. It's engineering students. They're students for a reason rather than already engineers. They're learning, but it's a really exciting time because the universities and the companies that come with that opportunity are also going to be potential candidates for that space. And so we're gonna have a fairly chaotic 2-week period of time to kind of make a lot of presentations very quickly. No pressure, guys, no pressure on that, but it's gonna be really good. So back to the timeline. 90-day time frame to complete that. We've kind of set Detroit Ford Fest as that absolute bogey. We've got to be ready to have conversations when that rolls around, and then very quickly flow into the rest of these trade shows and be prepared to move forward. We fully appreciate and understand that timelines as absolutes with construction just really aren't a thing.
Oh, boy, is that true.
But we've all been around it enough that we can acknowledge that and still have the opportunity to talk about the sizzle prior to there actually being a building to walk somebody into and say, this would be your space. One of the things that we've talked, and I've mentioned this to Bob and maybe in front of you too, Janelle, is that we feel like we need to pursue an anchor. And I'm not strip mall guy or whatever, I know that's how malls work and all that, but just a nice solid anchor. And we've identified 8 targets that are potential anchors for that space. That would be a real asset to the township and to this project.
And draws to other anchors, you know, as true anchors, right, to bring in the other.
If you can get a Ram or, you know, Jeep or somebody in there, the other ones are gonna wanna be there because they don't wanna be left out of the park.
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Right.
I like that.
So you have access to these, you've identified 8 potential anchors, and you feel that after phase 1 and you have all the marketing things done, you will be able to contact all 8 of these potential anchors and present all of this to them
In person.
in person. Okay.
Phone calls and Zoom meetings and all that stuff are way too impersonal. I mean, we've all had to do them because that's the world we were in.
I need
These folks.
one other thing I need, I might have to have you folks meet with me once to go back to the economic development people, you know, have told me we have the money for this. Just to pry it loose. So we can get it on its way, because they've had it since November. I might wanna have something where we just talk to economic development together to get this rolling, because they've been very supportive of this and said it, and I need to tell them, okay, when are you gonna send it to me?
It's interesting that, and I don't wanna take this off track, I wanna be respectful of your time, but Amanda from MEDC reached out after she was there last week. She's like, this place is so cool, what can we do that's gonna help with this? I said, well, it's funny you mentioned that, but.
Give a person,
Yeah, so we'll see, you know, how any of that plays out. But I think Detroit is reinvigorated. Jen and I had a dinner last night with some amazing leaders from Detroit. There's a lot of really good vibes around Metro Detroit these days. It's, you know, for those of us that have been here since the beginning of time, there's been plenty of times where you're like, yeah, from Detroit. But way out, we're not like really from there. And it's a really proud moment. And so I think the opportunity to play on some of what that looks like and bring people to Oakland County, show them why we're still the Motor City, no matter how those motors are powered. We're still the Motor City, this is still where stuff happens. It's very interesting that Toyota, as a corporation, currently has an arrangement with a different off-road park that had existed prior to my, you know, having any involvement with them. And strange timing, but their agreement happens to be up in December of this year, so.
Like I say, I think like every time it pays better than hard work does.
Absolutely. Timing is everything. Let's open this up. Heather, Gian, do you have anything else that you think that we should absolutely cover? Heather?
You're looking at the outline, and I think we, you know, I think, Bob, I really appreciated just the endorsement of saying, listen, we're not just the real estate, we're not just the sales, we have that holistic vision that we think goes to the future of what the township's looking for and what's gonna be beneficial in the long term and not just a one and done. And I just, you know, coattailing off of this guy, just wanna reiterate that's our intent, and that's why, you know, we think that we're excited about this project and excited to be brought in and involved.
You know, when I put the different deals together for the township, you know, I always like to figure out, how does everybody come out a winner in this? Because if you don't, they always go south. And I think what's particularly beneficial here is Tom's view is long-term for what he does with that park. That's what I think fits nicely with us. There is going to be benefit to him, not just in doing this initial project, but in the ongoing relationship that he builds, and then the additional shows he'll be able to arrange with the customers that he's got contacted right in the park. It's a very holistic, symbiotic relationship for all of us, and those are the ones that work the best, I think, for everybody. I mean, that's how we've kind of done it with Barry in the past, and I think that this has got the same, markings etched on it for that.
Bob, you bring up a really good point, and it was the last point I was gonna make, and that is, a real estate broker can land a client to move into a building, right? What does that real estate broker do after the client's in the building? Well, if the bathroom doesn't work properly, he does that, but largely,
No.
good luck.
It's yours.
Right. The point that we bring to this is that we're gonna give the client something to do with this newfound building that they have, because we're gonna help them create the corporate events, the testing sessions, the video sessions, all this stuff that we do as our business activates them and hopefully keeps them as a tenant over the long term.
Brings value.
I think you can see why I felt Tom was such a logical match for what we're trying to do here. Whereas most of the other prices, I mean, the county said, you can use our graphics guy, and I met with him, we drove him around there, and he gave us a price just for the video, but the same thing, he would've, I'll make the video and then I'm done. Okay, that's not what I want. I want a lasting relationship that kind of grows over time, so that it continues
You've
to
already
feed.
got that relationship with the park.
And I just,
Intimately.
we were talking about industry expertise, and this is from what I've seen, putting events together too. It's just, also just because you can doesn't mean you should. And if they, just don't build it just because that's what you want. Like, let's think about what the intended use is, and not just making one client happy, right? Like, having your interests in mind, as well as the tenants and the clients and the customers, and the intended usage. So I think that's an important,
Even the park people have seen that there's demand for people to have some kind of test and tune facility, because now I've heard it 3 or 4 times from some of the other ones, they want someplace where they can put this stuff, well, and I've told a couple of them, well, you haven't got any place to put it on the park, because the only black part you got in the whole place is the parking lot, and that's pretty much filled up when people come in, right? So, if that's something we need to do on our side of the equation, and I think that's something that can be done, because we talked about it, Barry has an interest in doing that, we can fit some of that in, I think, which actually helps them, helps us. Those are the deals that work the best. There's no reason why this shouldn't be a firecracker once we get it going.
Questions?
I'm just kind of curious, just trying to read through this and Bob's comments about the flash drive, just what's your vision for how this will unfold? And I know we've heard the video, I know in here it notes a website, so I guess I was just trying to get kind of and I know it's just starting, you'll probably do that branding process and then go into the creatives after that, but if you had like this, just a preliminary idea of how you see this plan unfolding, what would it look like if you were selling this to other people? What would you have to present or to propose to them? Does that make sense?
from a material standpoint or from an idea standpoint?
Ideas, yeah.
Paint the picture.
Yeah, paint the picture, exactly.
Picture it.
Oh,
Picture
my gosh.
it. 2025.
Yeah, exactly, like paint the
You used to
picture.
say AT&T, visualize it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll go on that, cause that's an easy one, that's something that's had hours and hours and hours of thought. It's pretty straightforward. Create these visual assets that are exciting. Bob, sorry, nothing against your sheet, but there's not a lot of sizzle there.
It was for a different purpose.
Yeah,
That's
I know,
okay.
I know. Hey, if there was a lot of sizzle to that, I would have walked out of your office concerned, like, holy smokes, Bob's got skills, maybe we're not gonna get this. But creating those visual assets and then doing what we do every day, which is reaching out to clients and getting appointments. That's how our businesses thrive. That's what we do. Taking all of those assets, going out into the marketplace, and bringing the people back here. It's really easy to get them to come here. A lot of them are gonna be Detroit-based, but a lot of them won't be. SEMA, frankly, has kind of blown it. They spent millions and millions of dollars on SEMA Garage in Livonia. there's nothing to do with off-road. And if you go to the SEMA shows, the SEMA show is now 50+% off-road. They're ignoring 50% of their partners in it. And so that's a strange thing. But going back to your point, taking all those visual assets, taking what we know and who we know, and going out and bringing it to life. And literally making people feel like they're in their building. It's sales.
Yeah, and I think creating that value proposition, figuring out what problem we're trying to solve for them. Here's what you're gonna, not just here's what you're going to get, here's what you're going to experience, here's what you're going to benefit from, when you become part of this. Buying into the idea, buying into the, almost, I hate to use the timeshare analogy, like, oh, you're buying into a lifestyle, right? But that's it, you're not just buying a thing, you're not just buying a one-off, right? This is a solution that's going to crop from cross departments in manufacturers or in OEMs or suppliers. We're gonna help solve a problem, and we're gonna, be of value to different parts of their organization and sort of sell them the lifestyle.
Yeah.
Gian hit such a good point earlier. Part of solving their problem is budget savings.
Yeah.
Let's use Bronco launch as an example. If every time a company, whatever company it is, has to load up 10, 15, 20 people, fly them to somewhere, lodge them somewhere, feed them somewhere, then create whatever it is that they need to for the launch, whether that's a consumer ride and drive, a media launch, a video shoot, whatever it is, all of those things, it's not an inconsequential amount of dollars, and it kind of pales in comparison what it costs to have garage space here that is a home base where you can go do a lot of those things.
And that's really the exact venue that the gentleman from Polaris was thinking of. I mean, he sees that same concept, but he's cognizant of the fact they gotta figure out how to get it up about 4 more levels before they're ready to do it, but that's his vision. And he had all the same points he was trying to bring up. He said, Polaris, I think they're headquartered in Minnesota, is it?
Minnesota.
Yeah, he said they got a lot of facilities there for their people, but they have a lot of people here in Michigan and no place to do anything with, so.
It's an interesting point, and then, because I could talk about this the rest of the evening, it'll be dark and we'll still be going because it's a great subject, but it's interesting the things that you're starting to see within the confines of this industry with the power sports companies, the traditional power sports companies, whether that's Polaris or Can-Am, which is Bombardier, or Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Suzuki, all of them, and the collaborations with some of the auto companies. And it's born in no small measure from the auto companies looking at side-by-sides. Everybody knows what a side-by-side is these days. Looking at those side-by-sides going, that looks a lot like a car. They're kind of in our space now. We better figure this out. And Gian and I worked on a project with a power sports company in conjunction with an automotive OEM, and that particular marriage didn't end up happening. But it's those kinds of things where that garage space, if that's what we want to call it, that facility space is going to be an imperative and really be something where there's a story to be told to these companies. Janelle, did that answer that was a really long-winded way to get to your answer.
Kind of. So really what I'm trying to envision, you have a potential, let's say, client or whatever we're referencing this individual as. And I know there's a talk about a website in this packet, and on this sheet, we're talking about creative assets. Now, I have seen some of those examples of the overviews, and so I know they mentioned that a couple times for anybody here or who's watching later. That's kind of like providing that vision for what could be in this space. I think that's what you're referencing, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I know that at least a video, but is it multiple videos, different ideas? Are these on a website? Are these playing at these shows that you're going to? I guess that's kind of what I was asking, is how you envision that unfolding. Is it multiple videos, one video? Are they on a website, or are they just a flash drive that's being passed out? And that's just more out of my curiosity needs.
I think so. To be a little bit more specific, I think what's sort of originally outlined is probably, and I think I have a video production background and a degree in video production, so I think we would, in managing those things, so I think we would put together one main video. Maybe it's a longer piece. We would cut it up into smaller pieces, and then be able to, it's like measure once, cut 6 times,
Sure.
right? You know, figure out what the appropriate thing is. There may be a spot on your website. I don't think there's a dedicated website in the first phase budgeted
Sure.
for right now. So, but maybe there's a YouTube link, right, that can be used. There's,
Super easy to
yeah,
create, just
there's-
a landing page.
But that's really what Tom and I had talked about in a couple of meetings, and I'm trying to go back to the discussions we had for about 2 years. Part of it is, one of the things, and I'll give you another example where you thought of this quickly, I said, I helped sell the idea of getting the marketing money for the county from this by telling them, I wanna help promote your park too.
Right.
So I wanna take some of your video links that they put together for the park, and when I said that to Tom, the last time I said, yeah, the stuff they did was really designed for an end user, we need to make it designed for the corporate guy that wants to be out there. So, to answer your question, we've envisioned where we have kind of a core video, cause I need to have something for the Detroit Regional Marketing Center as well to use as the economic people. And keep in mind, the other big plus we have besides having the park there is, we are the last mega site in Oakland County. There are no more. So, we need to be able to give them something that has a vision of what we wanna do with this whole complex and be able to tail it into what we would do if somebody was interested in part of it for a mega site, cause
Right.
we've had 3 or 4 inquiries on it, right? But then, he's going to be focusing first on all these OEM manufacturers and suppliers, right? We're gonna put a videotape and everybody said, I've gotta rework what we did with the county, cause it's not gonna
Right.
be right. So, to answer your question, I think there's a core video, that's what's in here, to get this started. And we'll have to, I got an idea when we talk with the county, maybe we can twist them a little bit to get some help for the review of the video they need.
You know, we don't wanna use those county videos. They're not good, and I'm in some of them, so you for sure don't wanna use them. It just,
Yeah.
it doesn't build any excitement, Gina, you know what I mean? It just, there's gotta be sizzle. If you're gonna get yourself in front of C-suite level
It better
corporate
be.
leaders,
Give them
there's,
Right.
there's
Right.
gotta be sizzle. And that just doesn't have the sizzle that's necessary.
Steve needs to be in the video.
But I also think, so using those tools and then saying, you know, it's a sizzle, it's a highlight, it's like, ooh, you know, you see a 30-second ad on TV. I mean,
Right.
we're not putting these on TV, but just saying that's how you could vision it, like, ooh, that's cool, I wanna know more about that. Or,
Right.
what does that drink taste like, or something like that, right, to get them interested. And then it's putting together, saying, hey, we have a solution for you. It's a marketing plan, it's a, you know, a launch plan, it's an engineering plan, and meet with those folks and have those say, here's how we're gonna solve your problems. You said something else about probably not playing at a trade show. Most of the trade show activations that we've planned for are us going,
Okay.
being on site, target-rich environment.
Okay.
I'm gonna, you know, if I don't have an appointment in advance, I'm gonna walk up to the booth and find the people that I need to find, because we'll know
Sure.
who those people are.
Yeah.
But probably, it's more of a target-rich environment where we can have, you know, 6, 7, 8 meetings in one day, sitting down with people, seeing people, hey, I've got this plan for you, maybe there's a marketing slick, hey, let's talk about this next Tuesday, you know, when the next time I'm in Dunbar, or wherever the company is, right?
And
And
you
that's the intent on that, if that
know,
makes
there's
sense.
no budget for us to set up at trade shows.
Right.
To set up,
Well,
as an
that's why I
example,
was just kind of
Yeah.
wondering, you know.
to set up at
looking
SEMA
through these, like,
is
how are these
$100,000 budget.
working? Sure.
It just, it's not even a thing where we go, well, you know, 100 grand, that's not so much, let's try it. It wasn't even among the considerations.
Yeah.
It's
No,
gotta
it's
be
just being present, rubbing elbows with the right people.
the old fashioned way.
Well, part of this is, if we get the right video with the right sizzle, get it started, go after the marketplace we're first going after, in the subsequent meetings, you will inevitably find something that says, "Yeah, we didn't think of this, and there's a demand
Yeah.
for it." And that's when you might start tweaking some extra ideas into it. Ideally, it should kind of evolve as we go along, but we gotta have something coming out of the gate that's first class.
Well, the animal's gonna change too, because
Yeah,
there's sometimes,
absolutely.
as the gravel pit changes, that's gonna add on to the park potentially.
And yeah, and we're getting more
And
Katie's
that gets.
property
Yeah.
released.
It's only about 20 acres, I think.
First part is 20, almost 21 acres, but then there's some additional, as her lease runs out, so, you know, there is that part of it. To me though, I don't wanna say that it's good, of course, but there's nothing to sell a potential corporate client on, oh, and there's now 20 more acres. They're like,
So,
no, but what's my building?
Yeah.
Where's my space? What does that look like? So I think that's.
This is good for the county too, because part of what they wanna do, Mount Magna was paid for by Magna Corporation, so part of what they wanna do, and they realize periodically they have to change some of the features of the park or it goes stale and the people don't come. They like to get a corporate sponsor come in and say, I'll build X, because I want it, you put my company name on it. So even when the extra acres get opened, if there's more people tied into the park from our property, there's more potential candidates for them to get sponsors to build features in there. There's very good tie-in for almost everything we do and they do to get it done together.
Or the feedback from those companies as to what they'd like to see.
And I've been preaching that to them so long at the county, they keep on saying that, so we're up. I
Gina,
think
the
we're on
other
the right
part is
track.
that's part of my agreement with the county also, is to bring those marketing things to the table, and that's why when you pull in and you see the signs and all
Right.
that stuff, that's all good stuff that I've done, so.
Well, and it says in here that obviously when you talked about it, that you will be able to start with a presentation and tweak it as needed, as you know, I see it being dynamic.
Oh,
Right.
we're gonna ultimately have requests along this path for, hey, we've got a chance to present to XYZ company. They wanna see this, and this, and we're gonna have to be nimble enough and dynamic enough to make sure that we find a way to tweak the thing so that we hit on those three critical elements that they've identified. And a lot of times, Gianna's gonna chuckle, but a lot of times, Heather, they aren't really clear sometimes about exactly what they want. I know that's weird, but,
We're selling the lifestyle.
yeah, you.
But we also can, but just because you can doesn't mean you should, so defining that for that, helping to define that for them comes from the expertise.
Because it's important to weed out the people who don't really need to be there, because that's just wasting everybody's time.
Exactly.
Any other questions? Jim, any other questions?
I would say, how many, like, you have future partnership 2025 and beyond, 2026, 2027, like, do you see this continuing?
Momentum is always your friend,
Yeah.
and the hardest part is getting some momentum started by a long shot.
Yeah.
And once you get the giant boulder rolling down the hill, it tends to come a bit quicker. And our intention is to, and I think it'll come naturally because there won't be an ability to build buildings fast enough, is that there'll almost be a shortage of available garages at some point. And that's when when you've got a waiting list.
Those are good
people
problems.
anxious.
Yeah.
But we've got a mountain of work to do
Mhm.
before we can start to have that conversation.
Any others?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll make the motion on this. Okay, I would like to make a motion that we approve the contract as outlined in the presentation from Z Performance. And I don't know, I'm thinking, Tom, we'll make it like 3 years with renewable options at a year going forward to get it started, because it's gonna take a while to get those first features we talked about putting into the park there, so they got something to show. So if that's agreeable, that's my motion, to have them.
To have them,
Award the contract to Z Promotions per their bid for the
for 2024.
promotion, for 24 and through 25 and 6.
And is it like the same prices next year, or?
Well, this is the price for doing the video and getting started.
Yes.
That's it.
Right.
The ongoing relationship really, I think, will frankly get fostered by if we come up with something we need, or if he gets additional people that he brings in, he'll be getting something from the broker on the deal when it's done. So I think there'll be revenue streams in for you. The rest we'll have to see if we need something else, but this video and what we do with it, I think, and the marketing at the various trade shows is what we're agreeing to here.
So today, the motion is to approve the monies for phase 1 marketing and asset development.
And marketing representation for 2024.
For a 3-year period,
Okay.
is what I'd say.
Okay.
I think the point Teresa's making is that the budget that's shown in this document is specific to 2024
Yes.
and the development of those marketing assets and representation at the shows identified, and there'll be.
It's really
others.
phase one, right?
It's,
Yeah.
phase one and sort of 1.5 is
Yes.
the
Okay,
trade show
yes,
part.
yeah.
Yes.
From that point forward, if there are additional assets or additional work, we would have to have that conversation, bring that in front of the board again, if there's.
I just wanted
if
to
there's
be
budget.
for giving you at least 3 years to get the thing rolling.
Oh,
That's-
I
I'm sorry.
see.
I see what you're asking. That's-
Yes, okay.
So to be reviewed annually and
You can extend
updated.
it year at a time.
Okay.
Partnership exclusivity through the years, if that's, you
There you
know,
go.
we're the folks that are gonna work on the project and we'll work on what those needs are.
If you still like us.
Well, yeah, that, so our agreeing to this means we're not gonna have you guys and another company on the side doing something similar.
Correct.
We're putting our chips in your basket.
Yes.
We've talked about that, if we start slicing it into too many brokers,
Right.
too many
Yeah.
marketers, nobody's gonna be interested enough to do it.
Right. No, okay,
So that was my motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I would personally ask that you just clarify that motion for Laura.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that we award the
Oh, because I
contract as
said that.
outlined in Z Performance's package for this year, and that he's kept on, working on this project for a 3-year period, subject to annual renewals. If he needs something beyond the scope of this package, then he'll bring it to us and we'll discuss it at that time like we would anything else. Okay.
So just for my clarity, Bob, so we're not actually committing to phase 2 and 3, correct?
We don't even have, just to be
'Cause
clear,
we don't
Pat,
have any-
there's no
they don't-
dollar or any
Right.
scope
Yeah.
provided for 2 and
Right.
3
Yeah.
at this point.
That's what I wanted
Yes,
clarification on.
yeah,
But
that's
he's,
right.
but
So the
this is
monies we're
including
doing is
marketing
for
that
phase
all
one
the
and
trade shows.
1.5.
Correct.
This year.
Even if
Yeah.
it takes more than 1
So
year
that's
to
why I'm
complete
just,
it.
for the 3 years, what's
It better
happening?
not.
Yes,
But-
that's what
but-
I-
but if
Well,
he
we
had to
failed
do
yet.
that, but-
I
But
feel
that's
confident.
what I was
Again, the
hearing.
issue is if you had the opportunity of doing the same trade shows next year and the year after, you would continue under this contract.
Absolutely.
But that would
It's,
be
it's
under
if we
phase
had
2
to
or
have
3.
Yes, it
another
would.
Yep.
video of some sort created or something that required extra asset to be developed, we talked
And
about that.
as things change, that's necessary.
So this fee covers your attendance at these events and continued elbow rubbing?
Elbow rubbing. And look, obviously, if you want something in writing that says, and you guys are gonna try really hard going forward, we obviously will, but if we don't try really hard going forward, there's not gonna be any forward, so
Yeah.
it's sort of self-fulfilling in that sense, but
No, I wanted to clarify that, you know, moving into 2025 and 2026, if we're not at phase 2 yet, what's happening in those 2 years? I just wanted to clarify, again, for minutes
We're
purposes.
gonna know, and the whole reason I wanted to limit the first one to 3 years, as you recall, when we talked about the options on this, there were 3 different ways to develop a property. I don't wanna get 7 or 8 years into it and decide, wow, this didn't work, we need to try option B or C. And 3 years is gonna give us enough, I think, to know whether or not we're going in the right direction on this. Because we'll have enough of the park down to showing somebody, and we'll have the marketing materials we need, and the opportunity to push it at some of those programs, so.
And somebody who knows how to contact those people.
thanks, Jeff.
Did we talk at the last board meeting, or was it the special board, whichever one, about a 2-year option? Like looking at it at the end of 2 years?
We talked about phases.
Yeah, well, we could, we did mention 2, we could, the only reason I'm suggesting 3 is I think about now that the fact that we have to get, after the building's done, we have to get the road cut in, and the entry sign and the landscaping at the beginning, I just, you know that ain't gonna get done quick.
Okay,
And he needs to have some of that to show some of his respective clients, I think, so. I think 3 years is reasonable. Look, if it's not cutting it, he ain't gonna wanna do it anyway.
Well, you'll know right away. I think, you know, the relationship you have already in that, I think you'll be able to come back with some feedback
And when we
and let
get
us
this-
know what we have to do as well.
When we arrive at the end of 2024, we're gonna have a pretty fair idea of the field. We're gonna have a pretty fair idea of what the response looks like when we're at these various events representing this project. and showing people the video and all of these things, there's gonna be some solid input by that time. And I can assure you, there's gonna be things that we're thinking today that we're gonna need to shift on.
Right.
And an unwillingness to shift is, you know, due. Yeah.
I mean, is it, sorry, I don't, maybe this is helpful, maybe it's not for either side, but is it ideal where it's, hey, please come at the end of 2024, before year end, whenever your last board meeting is, to give an update,
That's what I was just saying.
where, like, we stand relative to,
Yeah.
have you completed, well, one way or the other, you should assess that we've completed the first phase of that, we've delivered the assets, we've taken you on the journey, and you're happy with what we've come up with, and then 1.5, where it's September through the end of the year, that, hey, what was the pulse? Have you had any solid leads? Or are you moving to someone who wants to sign an agreement?
That's a great idea.
Cause then we cap off the year,
By
where
the
we
time,
are.
yeah, by the time we get through PRI, the first week in December, we'll have talked to a lot of people. And we'll have a pretty good feel for what this looks like, and we may, at that time, maybe before that even, but at that moment, we'll be able to offer some input about, hey, we haven't discussed this, but we've had 6 of the people that we've spoken with that like this idea. They've all brought this same thing up. Let's consider how we can do that. I don't know what that is right now, but you find out by going out and being engaged with these folks.
Well, how about if we have, an understanding that perhaps at the December board meeting, you guys can come in and give an update to the whole board and the supervisor specifically, because in December, it will not be Bob anymore, so you will need to be.
First is the new date.
Is it?
Yeah.
No,
December?
that starts
January?
next year.
Oh, it starts next year, oh.
I think November 18th.
November.
This year.
20th.
20,
the new
something
one
like
is
that.
official.
That
So
assumes that all of you
December-
actually let him leave.
I know,
Oh.
I know.
It's the
I don't even
20th.
wanna think that far ahead.
Hey, this could go really badly for me. He may go, okay, you out of here.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday, it's like Tuesday in June.
But no, obviously, there's a lot of time between now and then to set a date, and there's gonna be plenty more communication
Yeah.
opportunities between now and then. But do you already have your board meeting set for December?
Yeah.
Second
They're always the second
August,
Monday.
Second Monday.
Second Monday?
Yeah,
Monday.
always.
Just as a thought, December can be a pretty busy time of year, so, I mean, I wouldn't even be opposed to like the 1st of January.
January.
Our,
I
our
was
sales
thinking the
first
same
year
thing. I
doesn't
think
until
that's better.
April,
Right.
March, so we have a little time, like when it comes down to budgeting and
Right,
everything.
January might be.
January.
I mean, unless you guys wanted to get it off your plate in December, but January may be a little better for everybody. Or
You let us know, and if it's 2 times, because there's some pertinent update that happens at that moment, then we'll come in again.
Okay.
My office
I like
is,
the idea of just having some periodic updates.
Yeah.
makes sense to me,
Yeah.
as do we. It's really important that we communicate what's happening.
Okay,
Yep.
so you have my motion. Is there a second to it?
Teresa, I think.
Teresa did?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, because this is for really $47,000.
Okay, Janelle Keller,
Yes.
Teresa Bills,
Yes.
Gina Mazzarelli,
Yes.
Robert DePalma.
Yes, and I will call the county back tomorrow and ask if we can have a meeting with them.
Great.
To find out how we free up that money they're gonna give us, so.
Yep.
Because they're gonna cover this. Or if they don't, we'll be behind for months. Okay.
I don't think that's the
No,
case.
I don't think
No,
so. They're-
knowing
they're-
who's involved in
They're
that
actually pretty
conversation.
deep about the project anyway.
Yeah.
They've been very positive.
It's
so.
very good for them.
Yes, it is.
And
And when we pitched it, we're tying their stuff in with it. It'll just make it easy sailing.
I don't, oh, go ahead, Teresa.
Well, my question to you is, I know, I'm not as familiar with what you do here in the township. You have a place there on Big Sky Drive?
Yep.
That you are, can you just like elevator pitch, what is it that you personally do?
What do you, I don't know what you.
So, it's funny, my day job is creating things for the automotive OEMs and the power sports OEMs. Whether that's vehicle launches, consumer ride and drive activities, media launches, just things many times as simple as video shoots and photo shoots. We're doing that for a company coming up here in a couple of days with a product that's soon to be launched. So there's my day job,
Okay.
the reason for the office next to the park. My other job are all of these events, many of which are based here at the park, but also we put on events in 3 other states. And those are all automotive and power sports oriented events. And then as a consultant to a number of other large events across the country, where I work on various things. A lot of times it's just, hey, we really need another person here, show up, and because you'll know what to do when this happens. So that's it. What? Oh yeah, I'm also on the board of directors of Tread Lightly. It's a national organization. Yeah, sorry. The third part of my life is board work, and I'm on the executive committee of Tread Lightly. We're a national organization that protects motorized recreation, off-road recreation across the country. Man, you get me going on this. That's a passion project. But there's kind of 2 ways to approach outdoor and off-road recreation. And one is with, hi, we're here to sue you. These are my attorneys. Open up that land or else everybody's gonna pay. The other way that you can look at it is, hi, we have a great team of people that can help you with signage, can help you with trail cleanups, can help you get some of the trails that you don't have the personnel to open. That's who we are. That's Tread Lightly. We do not have a political action committee. We're not lobbyists. We don't have a lobby in Washington. We go to a lot of meetings in Washington because we need to hear, but we try to be like the good folks and do the deeds. In Michigan, we've got Tread Lightly Day Michigan coming up at Hollyoaks very soon. Got a lot of corporate support for that, and we'll do this year in the U.S. we'll do 270 trail projects around the country. Let me clarify: the team will do 270. I do not make an appearance at 270 projects around the country.
I think that's important because that goes to responsible stewardship of land in the usage that, that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I
You're
sometimes
bearing the lead.
forget about that part of my life, in spite of the fact that I was on a board of directors phone call this afternoon. So it's really, it just makes this park feel really good, knowing that you're trying to do something that's good and keep trails open and keep places like Hollyoaks going and all these other parks around the country that find themselves in trouble.
Thank you. I'm glad that you have enough time to put this project also into your schedule.
It's important, I think. This has kind of become home, and for those that don't know how this started, I got a phone call from the Department of Natural Resources, and they said, hey, we're thinking of opening this off-road park, will you come take a look? And they kind of wanted a consultant or whatever, and
Well, I know how I got shot there.
it's,
Previous director of the parks, Dan,
yeah,
came to me after they handed him his head on a plate in Oxford and
Yep.
said, you think we could talk about putting a park in Groveland?
Dan was really intimidating when I first came into this project, and then I took him out off-roading one time, and he's like, this is the greatest thing, the park's gonna be a huge success, let's go. I don't know, I didn't have Steve to take him out though.
Yeah.
So anyway, it just, the stewardship part of it is really important. Everybody needs to be thinking about it. Unfortunately, side-by-sides have caused a lot of problems, because they can go anywhere. People think that they should go anywhere, and that's been a big
But
skill.
it's all in determining what you have to put together to make the project happen. In the case of the DNR, they wanted to put the park in, and Oxford told them, what part of no don't you understand, the N or the O? Okay, so Dan came over here, and I said, yeah, but here's what you gotta do for me. You have to buy Leone's pit and Stout Rock's pit. I don't want a landfill next to an ORV park. And they kept their word.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up involved, and it was a no-pay consulting thing, and I said yes.
It's a great business.
But yeah, look at how it turned out. Here we are. And,
So how many years have you been here in Groveland?
well, that started 10 years ago.
Okay.
That first conversation started 10 years ago, and you know, standing there in a abandoned gravel pit. And complete transparency, and I don't care if it's recorded, complete transparency, I was the kid that snuck into old gravel pits on my dirt bike as a kid, and I'm like, man, I have some empathy for this project. I need to do this.
The gully run,
Yep.
the prototype for the park on our property was 2014.
Yeah.
So it is 10 years.
Long.
Yeah.
Yeah, just seems like it took a long
20.
time. Yeah, there were moments where it felt like it was 20, but you know, here we are all these years later, and some things came together really nicely, and you know, Ford kind of helped give the park some fame by launching Bronco there. And he was largely responsible for pushing that whole thing forward with Ford and made all that happen. So you know, that's kind of how it all starts to shake out. And as Bob said, now here we are today after my free consulting program all these years later, and it turned out to be a great thing.
Okay. Okay, this is the part where we open to public comment. Anybody want to ask any questions or say anything? Okay, now a motion to adjourn would be in order.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
First, we're gonna motion to move these to the next meeting.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
since
thought we
we've
just
got
had
two
to.
things here.
Okay.
Since it's on the agenda.
Well,
I
we-
motion that we move, business items number 1 and 2 to the traditional regular township board meeting
Support.
on the 10th.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, okay. And then, now, motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
and is there a second?
I'll second it.
By Teresa, okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're done. Thank you, everybody.